I put this as when it offers the option to put, is this made for kids? This is made for all ages. And these are serious things. For example, that history is about. And it's one thing to say that we need experts for it and consciously know that you're just saying that to make an excuse. Where and how fact cheaping nature unfolds between people where subjects that are constantly manifest have been denied their constantly manifest demonstrations to us. And the relativity of that to the identity of relativity actually discernible as the value of the simultaneous alone and is with additional. And so each sequence nature, that which came before, the smallest detail now that was generated while being the value of it was generated distinctly, but also non distinctly. And so we are now using systems that have long been tactically ulterior from the one that is native pure, why we are revealed by nature itself, the simultaneous, the actually simultaneous, individuals, grouped in species, body. And so these are systems that have been since some ancient times, self-valued, fact-keeping nature oriented, uses of names oriented, uses of identity, ground locations, areas. Fox News confirmed, I recently said it too first, about how they have, now this is in defense of other countries, kids in our own. But in other words, since before everyone was born, there were collusions that had nothing to do with anything on the records, making more and more things other on the record as rolls with that breaching method, which is also increasingly relevant when people make fact treatment natures about serious things like color treatments. And relevant to this, where and how that breaching method put that there. A predicate acts delivery system method. I am not even a lawyer. And so lawyers of themselves, everyone, millions of us know, where honesty reveals that lawyers themselves were criminally foreign influence, identity, ground, possessions, as colonization was. And see, people don't realize that because the laws are kept from them. And because we have people that need to pretend they speak for truth. Now they need to go put some aggressions on the viewers. So when people need to use aggressions properly, it will stop guns, crimes of police and the killers, because they are kept with overt criminal enterprises, private ones originally, still people's opinions A through Z. All kind of things that are not politics, but people call them politics. All those natures of corruption individually grouped together. The counters to it. They're just straight victims to it. Blaming other things, others themselves, not the breaching method. That's increasingly relevant because that was also defended as as uses of quality of fact, cheap nature defenses, value treatment defenses. Again, tactical terror from that one. That identity of relationship to positive and negative simultaneously. Every identity has a relationship to positive and negative simultaneously. Since before computers, this is a database oriented to all identity ground instances. This is exploiting where and how we are walking values / value progression. Even if we're not walking, we're just sitting in one place. We are a value / value progression to it. That system that causes evolution's fruits and gifts revealed us really how we are. So we need to free when humanity is in a positive value nature progression. Someone using emotions is to keep it hyper true, and everyone likes it. It's because it just makes things work faster. You're trying to come to, everyone's been forced, and everyone is forcing quality of fact, cheap nature. A, therefore B. Leaving out exception nature, increasingly through other subjects, motivations, nature, needs, interests, all used remotely. Just need to keep using exception nature. It's like using, those are three bound exceptions in exception nature. A cell is. It is not a nucleus. Cell nucleus alone is not but is not without the cell nucleus. At least has an identity of relationship to itself, distinct from the body of the cell that we're in, how that is not manifest through observation of using a tomato cell as an example, and the cell walls. But we know also that cells, also the cell walls, not only do they share the gases and the water, the elements of earth carried towards that value/value progression, positive value nature progression, fruits, gifts, means that we need 24/7. Now since before America was founded, what forced the suburbs to cause negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures? It was with houses designed as one standing. Since before our founding parents were even born, who did not have free speech. They had to hide their roles, counter-extorting other American founders. You guys don't know this in other countries. Americans, you don't know this. Because differentially, sickly, distinctly, they keep everyone from having standardized understanding. So they made entertained narratives and that are simultaneously awareness of there being other narratives at other ages and natures of campuses, including ones like fire and medical that are half campus, half private, or half public, whatever. They're half active working at locations. See, our countries have roles with little evidence reception, data reception, identity reception, where and how. This method knew it would keep those all identities of sophistication and of non-sophistication in collusion/S. And with natures of corruption individually grouped and together, that wouldn't be able to see through ourselves to the human system. But needing to hide live progressions right back to all locations, right where we need to hide. Originally, still, really what keeps people lying to everyone offensively since they're kids. It's not even debatable about with lies regarding treatments of Black. No one wants that. So we could make an industry to do this. I'll do right from here. In other words, if we get the people that are going to do the business side of it like that, and they're able to keep it all open. In other words, I won't even need to pay for it. If someone will do, or give us temporary use of, let's all do a video together, video/S. And we're, as a plan, we'll receive. See, we have to look at what is positive and negative simultaneously. And we have to understand, forgiveness is not to give up. Forgiveness is to know that everyone painted themselves, blaming other things, others, ourselves, on the real cause of negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, which is one part of it, because then that was defended. And this is relevant to since you were youngest kids. This method knew that our founding parents left us like this. Other countries, Ukraine's founders, Russia's founders, since before they were born. This torture method, this human slavery method, that took us to systems all tectiliterior from the one that is hyper native pure, let alone native pure, Native American. They stole everyone's education. They made everyone blame other things other than themselves, even incorrectly, exactly the way the breaching method wanted to need. Because nature's going to keep demonstrating the breaching method, the value of it to us. Just like the value of how nature itself will demonstrate negative value, nature progression, acts of nature to anyone who went into any system, to a species that entertained slavery part of its system. And it had nothing to do with color. That's one of the many things. They had witch trials. And they had all other kind of laws crazy too at the time. And now, it was designed to be crazy at the time. Oh, things are getting better. That's designed. No one knows what to say. Shock and awe. Groupthink. That was an engineered groupthink. That's not just natural groupthink. It's natural only as criminal insidiousness. Nature's of positive and negative treatments. So they keep going on the news, and they're painting people, they're painting victims, not realizing. In other words, some generals, they say, "Oh, block off the misinformation. Don't let them give misinformation." First of all, it's not a war against us. And it's a war against us in the sense that it's humanity. It's tactical theory from the human science. But that's what the point is. So look, in other words, nuclear weapons and just having a nuclear place could just blow up. And it's right there. In other words, just having peaceful, what they call peaceful nuclear stuff, cause negative value, nature progresses. You have to defend what has to keep getting water to it to stay cool. Or in other words, Fukushima, the ocean took out a nuclear power plant. There's always an excuse. Those people are always going to have excuses. And they're not even allowed to tell on things. So how could they speak for the identity of the law? Then they exploit the exception that they are physically the law and we are not. But we are the law. We have the nature of humanity. We have the law of humanity, the law of the hyper simultaneous, denied. That's what Jim Crow laws were about. Means one thing to the breaching method, the predicate acts delivery system method, singular, that measured and maintained, and not just people are blaming on other things, others ourselves, not realizing, needing to, and remote uses of that. So here ye have only heard justice told to you through contrast. So same people, they have classes. This is what it comes down to. This is an oligarchy, or this is some kind of this is a dictator or not. That's not a premise. This is preventing individual voices and premises from being used. Because at all locations, areas, and states where our kids are shared as humanities, the names of our countries, it's still where and how locations, areas, and states, including next to the spots next to it, where mostly they have to fight, obviously, to pretend they have integrity here and there. They don't have integrity because they're involved with other natures of organized crime that are identity theft, fraud, slander method roles. They need just to pretend that use the value, go about, they want peaceful. But simultaneously, they don't want peace. Simultaneously, they're roles with a vertical and horizontal database oriented part of corruption tied to individually grouped and together corruption. But then that was used further remotely originally and still. And it's not complicated because we can be led by better than a calculator how one identity is distinctly the value of the hyper simultaneous. For example, what caused those crazy laws to put people, syntactically make faction right in the law with where it's illegal to stick up for black people, and all exception nature with a gang that had nothing to do with color, had nothing to do with racism or prejudice, originally and still. That's where we have shock and awe victim reaction nature to what everyone needed to respond to as fact-checking nature. And they knew they were blame other things, others themselves, and then invest that in that. So while people are defending what they say is just politics, they're increasingly valuing statutes and precedents formally and informally being and having been in collusion /S, criminally foreign influenced and hyper criminally foreign influenced. So we have to discern the difference between hyper criminal foreign influences, and we have to discern countries A through Z as archetypal criminal foreign influences, where and how they have worse than been victim predators who have failed to speak for history sanely and to speak for logic sanely and with physical delusions simultaneously. How they have gotten away with this is wire crime acts and methods, male crime acts and methods, roles, and nature's needs. That like this, people self-value roles with because of how the interbranches like that kept criminally foreign influence. They're already used remotely since they were kids. Vaccines, forbids. So there's a difference between violence being used by criminal foreign influences and violence that is natural. And see, that's where people get hurt. And that's where the same things that have stayed with statistics had to do. You can't tell even by, in other words, you have to use what's simultaneously actually recorded. And it shows too where and how the victims, even the worst predators, there were uses of them roles with them and with the people that locked them and watched them in their prisons. Kept already having been kept needed to hide the same final act of progressive lies together. The same sequence shifts, illusions, self-value. The same progressive coming values everyone's pretending they don't realize about. So nature is showing us that we are systems. See, but everyone self-values roles with it because that's how it was engineered. No one saw that, realized that. And that's what's used remotely. And what it was used remotely for has nothing to do with all the different kinds of corruption individually grouped together, which are all also, too, to keep what is increasingly being demonstrated to us by nature, which is the value of this in some ancient times breaching method, recorded through observation of criminally foreign influenced summaries of morality, of the identities through history, of the relevance of it, of the causes of it, of the meaning of aspects with it, qualities to it. Like saying someone is a dictator. is they're forcing that to be a premise. For example, on a mass scale, originally still, to prevent individuals from speaking the dictate that the Constitution unabridged in Marbury versus Madison grounded is. Hear ye, out here at locations. See, they're lying about our behavior at locations, formally, informally, and all exceptions, exception nature tied to them. So the branches of government are manifest as one body, as three parts, individually grouped and together, originally still used remotely. Criminally foreign influence the same way. Colonization itself was used remotely, individually grouped and together. And they were made individually grouped and together, blame other things, others themselves. Came through and could only be above, no matter how powerful the leader could get. Only could be above locations, areas, of states criminally foreign influence, therefore manifest criminal and citizen's natures of positive treatments and negative treatments and identity treatments timed to all locations. It's not by accident the landlines of our country are on free. For example, I donate the idea. Anyone knows how to get going? Keep it going keep it going back. Feed the people. Get a landline. No games on it. I shouldn't say, well, you have to understand how your branches of government has self-value rules of wire crime acts methods, motivations for it. So they have an identity of pseudo sophistication that is the peak sophistication / non-sophistication inclusion, differentially criminally foreign influence. This is not complicated. When we take something over, especially something so overt / simultaneously insidious, where the physics of the black, the slandered identity of ourselves, each human, sickly distinctly by those sick method roles. Tactical terror from the system we are. And again, for nothing to do with, in other words, to keep a quality of fact-cheating nature. Forced. And if you mess with them, one thing it was against every single colonist and against every single Native American, sickly distinctly, to keep how sickly non-distinctly from being discerned. I forgot now what's that. One of the reasons it was sickly distinctly against everybody is to keep how sickly non-distinctly from being discerned. And to keep it from being countered properly at fact treatment nature oriented locations and with fact treatment nature oriented relevance. Intercities too are paralleling illusions they needed to keep, and they need to keep blamed on other things, others themselves. For the breaching method that we're supposed to demonstrate this, but we have its self-value. We have narratives by what economies mean, by the relevance of political things. They have Wethersfield town offices. They have spots next to campuses manifest where and how they have law that has been differentially criminally foreign influenced originally and still too. No, needed to hide other, shown that by the breaching method. See, that breaching method was sophistication here. Since before cars were before our founding parents were even born, they designed the suburbs to cause negative value nature progressions, acts and natures. And they made systems and exceptions where people can make positive, oh, well, you can do that, you can go work through this thing. And there was all sick industries. All systems tactically ulterior. They had slavery sickly distinctly in the North and the South. I don't care if you have nothing to do with it, you hate it, because everyone actually hates it. When you just live next to the thing, you're in the county with it. It affects you. Because in other words, everyone's definitely ulterior from what's really going to cause positive validation progression. See, now this was claiming reality too. See, there are needs to discern reality is reality. And I don't say reality, because that will be reality, and the value of it, which they differentially are critically relevant to that which is simultaneous, which is relevant. For example, when we bring up a subject treatment like slavery, it brings up sociology distinctly from how it brings up English. And know-how predicate is relevant to the identity of the verb's identity of relationship to it, being it or not, as the state, or as the identity of relationship to itself as the main verb. See, we observe this as hyperpantheism, as pantheism more probably was, and more practically is. By observing that which is the value of truth that came before the order of the finite now, bound to it, it doesn't go away. The value of thank God Native Americans survived. Because, in other words, the value of it has not yet become manifest. The value of president/chief has not yet become manifest as chief/president. And that's self-valued. The only reason it's self-valued because precedence, everything that's all anyone ever experienced, having had replaced the short words and revelations that our founding parents left us to understand. That and how everyone was so scared, enslaved. They had to counter-extort everyone and force narratives that would lead as a road to having said that the Constitution should get unabridged, and be defended that way. That means not criminally foreign influenced, for example. And it means also Marbury versus Madison means real justice must satisfy all appearances of real justice. And so one thing they do is pretend, and no one wants to hurt others. And so they ignore things. Some people, in other words, are going to react differently. Some people aren't going to ignore things. And the people that ignore things, they should, because they don't understand how to counter or how to react. They don't understand. They don't know the names involved. Maybe it'll sound crazy. Or you won't. Why would you waste your time investigating something like that? Could you learn from it? Why do you waste your time on people you don't know? In other words, people have been planting. These are reactions that we never had to answer for, because they're attaching everyone to fake words. They attach my family, people I know since, they do this. And who's they? They switch names into branch too. Whole bunch of falsified police reports, intercities, involved with Wethersfield Police, people on off the state judicial branch offices. They're also with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and a whole bunch of other countries involved with this. And no one's going to deal with it honestly. People are just going to go and they're going to find jobs that are identity ground locations. No. that where they make opinions. Well, what could this be about? It must be about Putin's dictator. I'm sure he's not saying, well, I dictated, so I'm going to go in here with the troops. He would be sanctioned. See, they're not making people understand what sanctions or war is about, because both of them were the complete possession as people A through Z, as you are still forcing, or they steal and just fake our words. Weathersfield police, since before they were police, the Morrow family, a whole bunch of family members with the intelligence community, with FBI, CIA, involved with schools, putting little kids in fake locations with these little rap track games, where they're mixing fake, where they're having teachers as victims react. I've I'm not saying complain about my teachers. I told you the exception about the one was the ones involved, the one involved with the thing. Any other exceptions? In other words, they're taking me out of context because the former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, his federal criminal court defendants of his. He had a whole bunch of people associated with a Joshua Stryker, involved with at Trinity College with untimely deaths. And Weathersfield tied to one on Trinity College. And all these people make confessions to me, intercities that are connected. And I can't get one person on paper. And these are some of the people that attached me to fake words and fake lied to all the girls I was with. And through time, they attached it, including with the news. And they hid how she tried to fix that from the news. We have the dates that they called. In other words, they're hiding this because these are people also involved with leading up to the World Trade Center attack. And since the World Trade Center is involved with investigators, people that go about the system the way it is, people that took their jobs and titles the way it is, criminally foreign influence relative to black treatments that need to be used by everyone because it's an overt / insidious demonstration of formal criminal, worse than criminal incompetence, physical delusion simultaneously, and that is being and having been exploited. They've been exploiting an anomaly where they've been stacking fake conversations with people into databases, the agencies, and they've been doing this and exploiting it and getting away with it for other ways because they've been using they call that intelligence because that's the only thing they have at A through Z. They compare themselves to each other, sickly, distinctly hurt by the breaching method. The only reason we have any kind of a benefit is because Native Americans did damage control, and then they saw it coming anyway. Our felons, the only way we can defend ourselves is by going by that system, which is native pure. It's not a joke. I blow no smoke. Happy early Friday to you too, Ron Adams. I don't know if you're still here. I think you're still here. How are you doing, Ron Adams? So in other words, I forgot there's wars going on. One way we could end the nuclear things. I have the nuclear. If you haven't been watching on the news, CNN, I've watched on news today, and CNN they have that. I think it was on Fox News. They have Ukraine in war, and Russia about to go to war, and I feel particularly bad about this because I just knew from a discussion say we need to, there's still wars going on. We have all this technology, all this human might, but we have these same premises treatments where they're fighting and they're never using real premises. They're saying, well, this person is a dictator, therefore that. Like that's supposed to be, that's a premise for what though? Only things that are debatable and dishonestly, because they're getting away with debating things that aren't debatable, like with black treatments. This is overtly in demonstration of where and how criminally foreign influenced they use the locations, areas, and states. So right where George Washington had to come and leave slavery entrenched in North America and South America, he had to secure means to win the last battle of the Revolutionary War in Wethersfield, Connecticut, meeting in Wethersfield, Connecticut. Right around the corner from there is a witch trial place in Wethersfield, Connecticut. And slavery, he had to leave slavery entrenched in Wethersfield, Connecticut. They didn't, no human wanted anything to do with slavery. You could know this by knowing yourself. George Washington wanted nothing to do with slavery. He could tell no lies, but they were forcing him to tell lies. He was a fact nature slave, like our rest of. So our James Madison's plans to have, and our founders' plans to have the Constitution unabridged in Marbury versus Madison. Quote, real justice must satisfy all appearances of real justice, unquote. So that was taught means. Do you like Skittles? They're right. Boxy. So I don't know what that means, Skittles. I don't know. I like, I'm straight, by the way. I'm not, I don't know where the rainbow, I don't know. Because I don't mean to be just awkward things. They make things awkward too because they bring that stuff up into it. They have Ron Adams. This is also about like Judge Napolitano on his website on Facebook. For example, I was able to record where and how the police forums and courts, family and people like that who have family members interbranch associated with Facebook. And then the ones who are acting police forms associated with interactions and saying who's right or wrong with disputes between things. They've been placing evidences as roles with a database crime that has nothing to do with that, and it's just worse. It grew up with that because they never counted the original one. American history, when they had slavery and Jim and colonization, witch trials, they had everyone down to all locations used remotely. Colonization itself was used remotely and grouped. The countries involved with it individually grouped and together they were used remotely by a hyper-archetypal breaching method, a hyper-archetypal criminal enterprise, a predicate acts delivery system method, the proverbial devil, even if it is not real, is recorded, manifest enough to counter and is more probably and more demonstrably what is necessary to counter factual nature oriented where and how manifest actually the overt criminal enterprises are with locations, areas, and states. See, these are the locations, areas, and states were designed to cause negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures before the cities were built. And that was designed from where it would be built through our own. So everyone would blame other things other than ourselves. The breaching method knew that founders would come. They just preemptively did it a little faster. And they did it the perfect way they could by making the president/chief and the system that ended this ancient republic still criminally foreign influence democracy. Do you believe we, the USA, should go to war with Australia? No, the kangaroos, the land down under. I think, and definitely not China too. See, yin yang has been forbid equality of factual nature by the campuses the same way Alpha and Omega have. Alpha and Omega, there are proofs. Alphabet. Alpha. See that alphabet in the word alpha, the value alphabet. 26 letters in the English alphabet, 13th letter M stands for mother. N right after M stands for neutrality. And right after that, O, omega. See, omega is a distinct form of mother, and mother is a distinct form of herself as omega. And the neutrality is between that. Because what is distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously itself too as alpha is self-generating, hypergeneration, hypergenesis. We are supposed to write this. The Old Testament says we're supposed to write this. I'm paraphrasing. We're supposed to write this hypergenesis that came before the part that they start the Old Testament at, and then up to the where and how the sciences share an identity. People are going to come together. It's how in other words, there's differentially critical how the identity that the sciences share, relevant to these subject treatments, like with black. See, black pupils, whites, black pupils, whites of eyes. So this is my thing. I'm writing a book on this, but it's about how the sciences share. They're messing with my evidences. They've been falsifying police reports because they listen to what you say online. They have roles with gang thefts and frauds. The FBI. Now, just in other words, even through ad placements they make, and then they recruit the sensibilities of athletes into it and stuff like that. So they've been attaching people to fake words with the news media, lies about cases at locations, that as roles with locations. Then they pretend it's personal when you bring it up. It's an extortion method, but it's worse than just slavery method, torture method. See, what we were told through the news that groupthink, quote, groupthink was one of the things that led up to the World Trade Center attack. Also, a whole bunch of people at Central Connecticut State University recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed roles with uses of the same house /S involved with wire crimes and falsified police reports with them. Now, they didn't confess like that. That is how they made all victims when I was a kid.